Scheduled Plan Commission meeting to order for the Village of Tinley Park, August 19th, 2021. Could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to Governor Pritzker's Disaster Proclamation and Public Act 101-0640, which amends requirements of the Open Meetings Act due to COVID-19 pandemic. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Although remote attendance is an option for the Planning Commission, board members are all present here today. Please note that we also have petitioners and others on the line, perhaps, that are possibly anticipated to call in. So, Lori, can you confirm the audio today, or will we have anybody calling in today?
There are no audio participants anticipated for this meeting.
Okay, excellent. With that, Lori, can you please take the roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner Gatto. Commissioner Lucido.
Present.
Commissioner Manning.
Present.
Commissioner Maniatis. Commissioner Shaw.
Present.
Commissioner Vargas. Present. Commissioner West. Chairman Gray.
Present. Okay, a quorum is present. We'll move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications at this time?
I have nothing to report. Kimberly, is there anything?
Okay. Moving on to the approval of last meeting's minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 5th, 2021 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Lucido. All those in favor of approving the August 5th, 2021 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We'll move on to item number 1 on the agenda. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Parth Patel, on behalf of Parth 37 LLC, doing business as Smoothie King, variations from the zoning ordinance, minimum parking requirements, exterior material requirements, ground sign setback, maximum number of wall signs, maximum wall sign size at 6801 159th Street in the B3 General Commercial and Business Zoning District. Site plan and architectural approval is also being requested. The requests allow for the redevelopment of the property to accommodate a new Smoothie King restaurant with site upgrades and a dual drive-through. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Manny. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. I have received certification of the public hearing, a notice being published in the local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in to speak after the staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed with your presentation at this time.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be taking Smoothie King through these next steps here. We had a healthy conversation at the workshop, and I think you will see in the staff report a lot of these items have been addressed, and looking forward to going through this public hearing for this project and moving it to village board. So here we are. This project, as you all know, is at the southwest corner of 159th and Oak Park Avenue. It's been unfortunately an area that's seen some better days, and here we are going to hopefully create some new interest at this corner with the Smoothie King that will be basically taking the former Brown's Chicken at 6801 159th Street, tearing it down, reusing the foundation, and building this great new franchise that is currently in 1,000 locations across the United States, with the closest ones here being in Orland Park in Mokina, which I have visited the Mokina one quite often, and it's a great business model that is going to be bringing fresh smoothies to the area for, meal replacement, but it's fitness, and it's got a lot of options for a lot of different folks. The zoning in the area is all predominantly commercial. We've got a large shopping center there, Menards, that's been successful, and this area is particularly zoned B3, which can support these types of uses. As you can see there, we've got a nice commercial corridor. The state, IDOT, recently redid portions of 159th Street, of which the village jumped in on that opportunity and got the state and to help us with some sidewalks there at that intersection. So you'll see that that's been more recently improved, which is great because there's a bus stop that's there, and I see people using it very regularly. So hopefully they'll stop in and get a drink before they get to the bus. So this is kind of the typical look inside, very fresh, very clean looking. I think what they're gonna bring to Tinley Park will be very similar to what you see here. It's, not too large of a facility, but enough to basically allow some patrons to, sit inside a little bit, but mostly it seems like it's gonna be a drive-through use. People use their apps currently at the Mokina store. I know they don't have a drive-through, but it's very app-driven. People will order in advance, and you kind of come in and you go. So pretty fast, quick service that you see coming in and out of here. Here's the general site plan. With it being a small site and using the existing foundation, there's a lot of things to work with, but we do feel that the issues that were brought up at the workshop predominantly have been addressed, with the exception of a full island was discussed that wasn't possible due to stacking, so a raised curb was included, I believe, for the drive-through area. They've added a connection of a pathway off of the Oak Park Avenue sidewalk, so if someone was walking down, they could easily walk into the parking lot, so that has been added. Overall, the traffic flow, I think, will hopefully be accommodated well, and the second dual drive-through will help with that stacking, which is what you're seeing a lot of drive-throughs try to do as well. So again, these were the site plan comments that we went over at the workshop. As I mentioned, all of them have been addressed with the exception of item 2, due to some of the constraints on the site, but I'm happy to say that they're actually able to address all of these comments. Landscaping, all those items have been addressed as much as possible. We're going to see some landscaping brought along the perimeter of the site. There's not a whole lot more they can do, but it'll be a great addition with the landscaping if they are able to provide the all-new landscaping on the site. Architecture, I think this is really going to look great from the corner. Dan Ritter did a great job, and Lori with working with the applicant and trying to get a nice clean look. And I know we went back and forth on the way that structure, that metal looked, but we thought it would look really neat from the corner. And they're meeting the brick requirements, which is great, but also giving some new elements, as well as their signage. I believe there's some relief on the signage, but we're thinking that the signage, with it being an outlot and being visible on all 4 sides, it's appropriate for the signage that they're proposing. So here's where there's the signage breakdown. I'm sure Dan went in that in detail with you guys. But overall, we think the signs look appropriate with the use as proposed. Again, real clean look, tells you what it is. It's got a nice logo. Here's what's there now. I think this will look extremely better than what we see. A nice kind of ground-based sign instead of the pole sign. I think that it will be very attractive on the corner, so we appreciate that. We did work through the directional signage. They got that addressed with handling the changes to that. The drive-through, again, it can have 9 stacking with 3 additional, which gives them a total of 12. They are slightly short on parking, but again, this is going to be predominantly a drive-through facility, and we're seeing that more and more, and with it being more of an app-driven, really they just need to provide sufficient parking for their employees as well as those patrons that will be coming in and going. but we don't foresee there'll be much parking issues here. Lighting is standard. Most of our businesses are in compliance with our new photometrics. Everyone does the LED flat lens signs. It'll be much better when what's there now. Again, here's all the variations. There's a parking variation to permit a total of 10 stalls where there's a minimum of 12. We have some masonry requirements to permit the structure to have 18% of the exterior facade to be that metal accent panel, which we thought really gave it a nice look, a modern, clean look. The ground sign with the setback, it's kind of a tight location, but it appeared that there's not going to be any sightline issues with that. Again, the wall signs, as I mentioned, is another variation. Just with it being an outlet building and having visibility on all 4 sides, you tend to see more signage on buildings like this, which needs some relief from our code. And then we have the maximum wall sign size is also a component of that. Going through the standards again, the property is an existing site with existing dimensions and foundations, so it is limiting the ability to meet all code requirements, but we do feel that the overall appearance of the sign will be greatly enhanced, but complying with the code requirements is making it very difficult to redevelop and reoccupy. The site and building, again, with it being existing, is causing this difficulty to the owner. But the specific design proposed with the drive-through and parking will work based on the proposed user that has a unique service with shorter customer wait times than many other food establishments. And we overall feel that the proposed site and building will be an improvement to the overall existing and deteriorating property and fit into the surrounding developments along a heavily traveled commercial corridor. So we believe that the variations have been met with these requests. There's additional variations that the Plan Commission may consider. And then the standards for site plan here, the building materials, the design, the color, these are all things that we feel have been met with this development, as my staff has worked very hard with the owners and getting this design that you see today. We feel that this project is hopefully addressed all the issues that were brought up at the workshop, gone through all the standards, and we're here now to ask the public or the commissioners to ask any other questions. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. At this time, I'm going to ask if the applicant has anything to add. Mr. Patel?
Good evening, members. I did want to add one thing. I think Kimberly was mentioning the island. Basically, it wasn't meant for the stacking why we had to remove it, but if you see that there's also the possibility of cars being able to exit onto Oak Park. If we increase that island, basically if a car is entering Oak Park, it makes it very difficult for a car to also exit via that curb cut, so that's why we had to restrict that width of the island. And then Dan had brought up that technically we wouldn't need the island, but you know, with snow and stuff like that, if somebody is parked there, at least the curb can stop something from crashing. So we decided to put in as large of an island that we can and still have a spot to also put in that one direction signage in there.
Okay. And Mr. Patel, can I get you sworn in that you swear to or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Other than that, not too much. The building design is probably the first Smoothie King that has this design. Typically, their prototype building is block, which most townships don't like, but it's block, metal panels, and some wood panels. So to alleviate that and give it the upscale look and meet the masonry code, we're basically doing an all utility brick and limestone building. The accent material was something that Dan and the staff recommended because when we looked at the building with just all masonry, it looked a little too cracker boxy, so we needed some sort of accent material. So we figured the metal would give it a nice accent on the signage to help bring out that corner. But other than that, I don't have anything else unless there's some questions for the commissioners for me to answer.
Okay, yes. I will ask the commissioners, beginning with Commissioner Shaw. Any comments for Mr. Patel?
I just had 2 questions here, and I was going through the workshop details, so I apologize if this was covered. If it was, we're just emphasizing it. With respect to the two entry points off 159th and Oak Park Avenue, was the option of doing a right-in, right-out only discussed? I didn't catch that in the report.
That's essentially what it is. So on 159th, that is a right-in, right-out.
Okay,
So, and then on Oak Park, technically, it's also right-in, right-out. You're gonna be coming in, technically, the people that come in on Oak Park, that would be a right-in. If someone decides to come on northbound, then they're making a left, but the site itself is all right-in, right-out. The goal was to just have one directional traffic.
but
At this point, it's not.
there's not a pork
forced.
chop in there.
Right.
No.
I mean, could someone crazily do something crazy, which I've seen, but, yeah, you might take a chance going left on 159th Street, but.
Yeah, 159th is not really a concern because
Yeah.
there's a physical barrier.
Oh,
Yeah, I've
people
seen
have gone
go
over that.
though.
Hmm?
Did
People
some
have driven over
sign.
that.
Okay. The other thing here was, and I'm losing track because I know jurisdictions have been changing quite a bit on the roads. 159th is,
IDOT,
it's IDOT.
yep,
Okay,
and we control Oak Park Avenue.
okay. There's currently not a crosswalk there.
No, because you can see they couldn't, we talked about this, I know when they were redoing the intersection, I don't think, because they made the, sidewalk go to the curb so you could cross over, I think there's some grade issues, but
Right.
it's not.
Okay.
Because I've talked about trying to get the bus to put a pad there or in a shelter, but there's some limited space and grading issues, so.
Okay. And this is, I would just say it's a great business. I saw them when I was down south recently. I didn't get a chance to stop in with the family, so I'm looking forward to it. But kitty corner from that, next to the Shell, is a Stage Door Dance Academy,
Mhm.
and all ages of dancers there. And when they get a break, they hit the Shell. So when you open, there's gonna be a flood of business, and it's a busy intersection. So that's, and that's not really on you. I just wanted to bring that point up to see if it had been discussed. I guess we'll see how that works. But I do appreciate the addition of the sidewalk.
I tried to work with Priscilla, because Pace can basically install those shelters for free. They work with the townships to put them in because they make up for them by putting in the ads. I don't know where that ended, because I did put her in contact with someone that I reached out to that did have interest in doing it. Because, as you can see on the site plan, if they're able to put it in between those trees, they would have to add the concrete themselves. But there is room for the shelter, so I don't know if that just never got followed up on or what happened there on that one. But
Yeah, there's different agreements, because I talked to Pace about that too, but yeah, we could probably still kind of push that issue a little bit more and see where we can land on it.
That is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Commissioner Manny, any comments?
No real comments, but I just, I do appreciate the plan, and I appreciate you selecting Tinley Park to bring your business.
thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Vargas.
The only comment is I'm really happy it's coming. My kids love it. They love Smoothie King, so thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Gaskell.
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Lucido.
Just that the project, it looks good, and it's gonna be a great addition to the neighborhood and definitely upgrade that corner.
Okay, I just have some few comments. When I do appreciate you revitalizing that corner, I also like the innovation of reusing the foundations. That's good. And I did appreciate the letter that was included with the packet from the staff where Jeff Dunn, your construction manager, had given some written verification of the parking with 12 stalls, and then the stacking, I think nothing went more than 6. This has 9, so it kind of quelled any concerns that stacking would be an issue. My benchmark for bad stacking is always, not to pick on them, but the Starbucks at 159th in Harlem. And so, and this doesn't have that type of room. It would spill out into the 159th and Oak Park. So I don't have any concerns with that. And it does sound like you may get some kids walking across those busy streets to patron your business. And I was just curious, like, in terms of the customers at the other businesses, I read in the staff report, a lot of people, it's kids, they'll come in and then leave. Comparatively, how many parking do you typically have at any one time in a Smoothie King?
So
Being used.
the sites kind of vary as far as the parking usage. It's typically mostly our employees, which maxes out around 5 or 6.
Yeah.
A lot of the sites that I currently have, the parking's really tight as it is. If you guys are familiar with the corner of Route 59 and Black Forest and Shorewood, we share a building with Noodles and Company. They basically eat up a lot of the parking, so typically there's only 2 or 3 parking spots available for our customers. But how Kimberly was saying, a lot of people order ahead on the app. So what happens is they've already ordered, they literally park, they might even park in a handicap spot. They'll come in, grab their smoothie, and they literally leave. So it's not a lot of like standing traffic. We also have another site in Cherville, which is on the corner of Main and 41, where we share a shopping center with a Starbucks. That's a right-end drive-through. So their stack literally goes in front of everybody's parking. So it's even hard for the consumer to actually get into that center. There, we're not even having any dedicated parking, and people are still able to get in and out. So typically, we're not seeing more than like 2 or 3 stalls that we need actually for patrons,
Okay.
about 5 for the employees.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, you know your business more than we do, so I appreciate you sharing. Just a message to staff, I do agree with the standardized signs. I think that's perfect. It's just for clarity and, universal understanding right away with the one way and the stop. And the other thing I saw in the staff report that I agree with is just to revisit parking if this ever happens down the line, 10 years, 20 years, whoever, or whenever, but I wish you the most success, is if it does get repurposed, that it would have to be visited with a traffic study. And so I know that wouldn't really be your concern. It looks like it meets your needs, but I just want to emphasize that I think that's good that that's in the conditions for those, for the motions. With that, I don't have any other comments.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes.
follow-up question.
Sure.
You mentioned employee parking, using up the limited number you have there. Have you considered, or have you had discussions with the center, Menards, the center owner? Because they have out parking that is like right next to your property, but no, it's rarely used.
It's something we can consider if we need it, but typically, if you're looking at the site plan, those southern stalls would probably be all employee stalls, and then the ones that are facing Oak Park would probably be for consumers. Typically, with a Smoothie King that has a drive-through, we're looking at about 90% through that drive-through.
Really? Okay.
Because it's not something that people really get to like sit down and enjoy when they're at the store. It's like, hey, we just got done shopping. I'm gonna get something really quick for the kids. I just got done working out. I got to get something to like give me some protein or a meal replacement, or hey, I'm on my way to work. So the drive-through is going to be a majority of the sales traffic happening.
Good.
And to address more of the stacking concern, it's not just 2 lanes for stacking. There's also 2 points of order, which a lot of concepts don't currently have, but they're all thinking about doing it. Basically, that'll help push more throughput through that line, because now we're going to take 2 orders in the time that it takes to take 1. So that will also help with preventing any kind of backstop on the traffic.
I totally agree, yeah. The double drive-through, which came about maybe it became popular within the last 5 years or so, has really taken over for a lot of rebuilds for some of the restaurants around here. With that, does anybody else in the commission have any questions or comments for Mr. Patel? If not, you can return to your seat, Mr. Patel. If there's anybody from the public wishing to speak, it doesn't appear so. So we'll move on. If there's not any further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Staff, could you please present the standards at this time?
Okay. Sorry, I might have gone through them already because I
Yeah,
haven't
you
done-
brought up, yeah,
done
1
this
through
in a
3,
while. I kind of
absolutely.
jumped ahead, but, so we have the list of standards of variation. I can put them back up here on the board for you all. And again, The property in question is existing, and the question is if it cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used by only under the conditions allowed. And there is some limiting factors on the site by the owner using the existing foundation. It's a limiting his ability to expand and meet all requirements, but we do think an overall will improve the site and enhance the area. The plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. Again, it's a small site that he's working with that does not meet today's kind of standards that we'd see for typical build-outs of this such, but the design is proposed to have a drive-through, which will be the predominant use of the facility, and therefore we feel that whatever shortages there are in parking, that the drive-through will be able to accommodate the customers clearly through the site well. And if the variation is granted, it will not alter the essential character of the locality. Again, the proposed site and use and building will be an improvement to the overall existing deterioration, will fit into the surrounding developments along a heavily traveled commercial corridor. And those are the variation standards that we went through. Then we have the standards for the site plan, again, which really pick up a lot on the architecture of the building and the site design. They're using quality material, maintaining our brick, but adding some elements of metal, which we think is a great edge to the location. It's a cohesive design. We think it's compatible in nature with the existing shopping center. The color choices we felt were appropriate. There's defined entrances that are clear from the public right-of-way. And then just in general, I think all things will be addressed with the permit. The mechanicals will be screened as we work through the construction drawings. We'll make sure that that is factored in. Trash enclosures will meet and comply with our requirements. There's pedestrian access as much as possible in the site that they've made to accommodate. And I think that is all the areas for that.
Okay,
Or any motions?
sure. Thanks, Kimberly. Now, at this time, may I have a motion regarding the site plan and architectural approval?
I make a motion to grant the petitioner, Parth Patel, on behalf of Parth 37 LLC, site plan and architectural approval for site and building renovations for a new Smoothie King at 6801 159th Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District in accordance with the submitted plans and subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan approval is subject to approval of the required variations by the village board. Number two, the dumpster enclosure shall be constructed of masonry matching the principal building. Number three, any changes in drive-through or parking demand from what was presented requires a new traffic drive-through analysis to be submitted and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient. And number four, site plan approval is subject to engineering and building department permit review and approval of final plans, including any grading or drainage changes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Lusciuto, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. Lori, can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Lusciuto.
Yes.
Commissioner Manning.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Now, at this time, I have a motion regarding the variations. Can somebody put motion number two on the screen?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Could you put it on the screen?
Oh, I apologize.
That's all right.
That's me.
I don't have it memorized. I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant 4 variations from the zoning ordinance to the petitioner, Parth Patel, on behalf of Parth 37 LLC, as listed in the August 19th, 2021 staff report for parking requirements, exterior masonry requirements, ground sign setback, and wall sign allowances at the property located at 6801 159th Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt findings of fact listed in the staff report.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucido.
Yes.
Commissioner Manning.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. So my understanding, correct me, Kimberly, if I'm off, that this item will go to the village board on Tuesday, September 7th,
That's correct.
2021. So, Mr. Patel, if you can get with staff to find a way to be present either physically or perhaps via phone line. Thank you for your time tonight, and good luck.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll move on to item number 2. Item 2 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant the petitioner Edgar Montalvo on behalf of Faith United Presbyterian Church variations from the zoning ordinance at the property located at 6200 167th Street in the R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District. The granting of this variation will permit a freestanding ground sign that is larger than the 30 square feet maximum size, with an electronic message center sign to exceed the maximum size of 20% of the total sign area of a freestanding sign, and to encroach within the 10-foot minimum setback from the south property line. May I have a motion to open this public hearing at this
I'll make a motion.
time? Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Lasciuto. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is carried. I have received certification of the public hearing notice being published in a local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in to speak, but after the staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed at this time.
Thank you, Chairman Gray. Here is an image of the property in question. This is Faith United Presbyterian Church at 6200 167th Street. This is at the corner of Gainell and 167th on the northeast corner. So we're here tonight for a sign variation. The property here, as you can see, has an existing freestanding sign with the existing church in the background. So I'd like to provide some background. Here at the upper right, you can see the location map with the property highlighted in red, and you can see the lower image, a view as you're looking west towards the sign, so you get an idea of the immediate context of the area. So the site is fairly large. It's a 2-acre property at 167th and Gainell. The property boundary lines in relation to the right-of-way is unique in this case. The south property line does not abut the curb. It is actually set back about 20 feet. So there is a 20-foot grass parkway between the curb and the south property line. It is along 167th, which I'm sure many are familiar with the nature of the traffic there. Though it is a 35-mile-an-hour zone, it's heavily traveled. Average speeds are typically over 40 miles an hour, sometimes higher. The property itself has the church as well as a pavilion that received a variation in 2017. It has a parking lot, garage, and garden. And just note about the existing sign. So this is an old sign. The sign is over 30 years old. It precedes the property's annexation into the village, which was in 2001. The sign is, to give you an idea, if we're considering scale from comparing the existing to the proposed, since we have a similar setting and size, that's helpful to visualize. That sign is 32 square feet, the sign face area, and it is non-conforming. As you can see, as you've noted from the staff report, the location is actually encroaching into that 10-foot required setback. Again, the sign was prior to the village's annexation. And it's 3 feet specifically from that. And The sign is surrounded by some landscaping with a low, very low brick wall that varies in height, approximately 9 inches. As you go around due to the topography, it varies slightly. But it has a nice low landscape wall. So, the sign itself is a manual changeable display. The reason why they're proposing to remove it is this is deteriorated. They'd like something more modern, easier to change out the material and the messaging. So for zoning, this is within the R1 residential zoning district. Our nearby context is R1 on the north side and R4 on the south side, M167. So to note, one of the variations we're discussing regards, the sign code breaks out residential properties to have a smaller allowable maximum sign area, 30 square feet. And there's, within the residential district, that you can have either residential properties or non-residential within that zoning district. So churches, parks, schools, that sort are typically falling into this category where it must meet that smaller requirement of 30 square feet. Also, to note with the code, 10-foot minimum setback, that's for all zoning districts, for all freestanding signs. Okay, so, also the other major point of code to note is about electronic message centers. It is currently a maximum of 20% of the total sign area. This regulation was amended in 2017. It previously was 50%. So, that is a point to note. The village went through with this amendment in effort to limit electronic message centers so that they would function subordinately to the identification of a business. So thus it went down to 20%. At the right, you can see an image of the St. George Church. And what's to point about this particular sign, it's very similar to what the applicant is proposing. We've had the applicant work with doing a brick base along the bottom, but you can see the dimensions and overall appearance is somewhat similar. But that sign was prior to this amendment, so that was actually signed done by right. Another sign to point out, as noted in the staff report, is Trinity Lutheran Church. They were recently here to the village for a variation to replace their non-conforming sign with a like-for-like replacement. So that property is also on a heavily trafficked corridor, but it's commercial. It's on 150 northeast of 159 Tinley Park. So one point the major point with how this sign affects the context of the area is its visibility to residences. There is a note in the sign code that states that electronic messaging centers, the illumination of them shall not encroach or create a visual nuisance to the residential properties. So we want to consider this. When the village did the public notification, we considered not just the minimum feet requirement, but we looked at any residences that would have a visual direct line of sight with the proposed sign. So here you can see that there are varying levels of impact. I just included an aerial on the upper right to kind of get a closer view of what some of those nearby abutting properties would be. So the one on the left, the photo on the left, indicates what you see A, that's when you're looking east, that's the property immediately west. And the second photo is the properties on the south side of 167, looking north. So you'll see in the diagram in the upper right, where I've indicated the existing sign, and you'll see orange line that says fencing. That's a 6-foot tall privacy fencing that two properties happen to already have. So, with all this in mind, you're looking at the existing sign. The proposed sign will be very similar in scale and location. The sign is 3 feet setback. The applicant proposes to have the new sign 2 feet further north. So what you see here has a similar visual effect. And then just to reiterate, there's a 20-foot right-of-way. These homes that are in question in the line of sight are all 2-story residences. The homes to the east and west do have 6 mature trees and foliage that obscure the property to the principal structure of the property to the west as well as to the east. So the photo looking east, that photo A, is actually from the driveway, but the house itself is to the north of that. It is about 175 feet from where the proposed sign would be to that home, but again, there's obscuring foliage. And the other properties of possible concern would be to the south, the rear of these properties. The property is actually front Laurel Lane. So this is, photo B just shows what the view would be not from the residence itself, but from the sidewalk. So just a couple feet beyond where the end of the property would be. And so with this, to note the point about the 3 variations, specifically the petitioner has noted that these regulations for residential zoning districts, such as 30 feet total sign area of square feet, makes it difficult for the messaging to be displayed. This is largely due to the context of the area with the right-of-way and with this frontage, and that is on a heavily traveled road with these high speeds. Okay, so they have there's the 3 variations that are requested that you can see up on screen. I just tried to bullet point them out so you get a side-by-side comparison. The code requires 30 feet square foot maximum size of total sign area. We consider total sign area to exclude those elements of that frame the sign, so like the pillars and the base, we do not count that. So they propose 38.67, and that is 96 inches wide and 58 high. And then the second variation for the messaging centers, 20% max, they're proposing 41.38, 16 square feet. And then the 10-foot minimum setback, they're proposing to approach only 5 feet from the 10 feet setback. So that is an improvement of what the existing location of the sign is. And just lastly, to note, the petitioner has, in their narrative, in their proposal, they've offered to shut off the illumination of the sign from 11 o'clock p.m. to 6 o'clock a.m. So this is a point that the commission may wish to consider as you deliberate motions. And next year, I'll just show a blow-up of the lower portion of the site, as this was indicated in the staff report. You can see here that the black dashed line is the property line. You can see the solid black line is the curve. The green dashed line is where that 10-foot setback would be, and they've noted in there where the existing sign is and the proposed sign. So again, setback 3 feet. Further, staff did look at if there is a possibility to have an alternate code compliant location, but because of the way that the sight line is with this extended right of way and the vehicle speeds, that is difficult. So they proposed, or not proposed, but they've noted that when a person drives, it depends on the speed, of course, but you see about 3 seconds of visibility when you're going eastbound and about 4 seconds when you're going westbound. So you have a limited amount of time to get the information from the sign. Lastly, another point to note is about proposed locations. They do intend to keep the east-west location very close to what is proposed. This will depend on the extent of moving the foundation for the existing sign. And they really do intend to keep it close. There's an electrical line that they're talking to. And so lastly, here's the sign. So you can see the brick base and pillars. I've just outlined in red what the village considers total sign area, and yellow is the electronic messaging center. And the sign has, a nice brick that staff feels will help complement the architecture of the church behind it. Also, the scale appears to be relative to its conditions. Sign specifically, the construction of it will be a double-faced aluminum cabinet, and it will have the electronic messaging center below the identification of the business. So, again, similar to the face signage of the existing sign, staff would like to recommend the condition to shut off the illumination of the sign. Currently, it's proposed as 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. The last point to mention is about landscaping. So we require landscaping around freestanding ground signs. So the petitioner does intend to remove the bushes that are currently there, but prefers, if possible, to keep that low wall. Again, it depends on the excavation and installation, if that wall can remain. The current proposal is they're considering low maintenance plantings like creeping juniper, one type they're considering. When they come in for, under the condition that this could be approved, if they're able to proceed with permit applications, they will provide a final landscaping design at that time. So that concludes my presentation. We have a few members from the Faith United Church here. Pastor Adam Malik, Frank Spike, and Greg Nigelman, and Edgar Montalvo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lori. At this time, if any one of the petitioners wants to come up and speak, please do, and I'll have to swear you in. And also identify yourself for everybody as you write your name in the book as well.
I'm going to start off by saying I'm deaf out of my left ear, so if I have to ask for someone to repeat, I apologize.
And what is your name, sir?
Edgar Montalvo,
Oh, Edgar, okay, yes.
and
I just want to swear you in quickly. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
Essentially, what we're looking at doing is replacing an old sign with one that's going to actually meet our needs. I want to start by saying that the existing sign is already larger than the requirements. And so what we're asking for is one that's about 15% larger, approximately, in terms of square footage. But the key element actually is not trying to get it further into the property. It's already set back over 20 feet from the curb line, and there's a lot of vegetation to the east and west. And so drivers, who of course always drive at the speed limit, nothing faster, the nearest two traffic control devices are Oak Park Avenue or the lights at the railroad tracks just west of Central Avenue, which means these people are going no slower than the speed limit. I'm being very sincere. When they go past this property, and because of the vegetation and because of the setback, and now the topography, there's like a hill right at 167th, just immediately east of our property. They probably only get 2 to 4 seconds maximum, depending on whether they're coming from the east or the west, to actually see our sign. And in order to be able to read any kind of message we would have, the lettering has to be larger. And so that was why we necessitated the request for a larger messaging center. And I want to add that in many cases, other signs throughout the village, such as St. George and other places, they're either an entirely residential area where the speed limit's like 25, and so people aren't zipping by, one, or they're at an intersection that has a traffic light. So then you at least capture, some slubs who have to sit and wait for a red light, and now they could read your message at their leisure. We don't have that, and so for those reasons, we've requested these variances.
Okay. Well, thank you, Edgar. I appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Does anybody else wish to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pastor.
And could you say your name again?
Adam Malik,
And I'm going to swear you in, Adam. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
Okay. Speak.
Or boss, depending on, okay. We're a small church. We don't have aspirations to be a Parkview or something huge. We're just looking to find a way to stay relevant and connected to the community. I heard mention the fact that we have a garden and a pavilion. We use both of those things as community outreach. And so this would be an extension of that. Again, trying to find a way to connect to the community, let them know the services that we offer beyond just worship, whether it be free produce from free organic produce from the garden or a free community meal. We just did a vacation Bible school that was largely attended by members of the community because we don't have a lot of kids in the congregation. And so we're looking at this as an effort for us to get a message to people that don't normally have one. I know it exceeds, and we're requiring variations in a couple of different places, but as you already heard told, we're dealing with some difficult geography here, and we want to make sure that the message that we're offering is shared well.
Okay. One question while I have you up there, I probably should have asked Mr. Montalvo too. In terms of the sign being on till 11 p.m., why 11 p.m., why not 10 p.m.? Do you have activities going on?
I can go 10:56, that's fine. No,
Okay.
if it needs to be 10, it needs to be 10. I think we just looked for a garden variety, like these are reasonable hours. If it needs to be 10, it needs to be 10. You know?
Well, I was just asking if there were special events. Edgar, if you want to approach the microphone to clarify.
I figure anyone traveling at 2 in the morning past that isn't going to be interested in whatever we got to say, to be honest.
They might need
The
you.
reality.
They might need it more, but.
Okay.
But we pick the hours because that we figure the majority of people, you got quiet. The sign's not making any noise, it's just blinking. We figure, you know, if it's got to be 10, if that's what the planning commission would prefer, the village, then it's 10. The idea is we need to get our message out, and that's one of our key ways of doing that.
Okay.
Well, and
We're done by 11.
the other point I wanted to make was, you know, we're making a very concerted effort to reach out to the communities. We built the pavilion recently, and we've, you know, this is followed by a few years before that, we started the community meals. The logic is we want to be integrated more completely with our neighbors and without causing undue, nuisance to them. So that's why we offered to keep the sign turned off at the evening hours, night hours.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, I'll ask our commissioners if they have any comments or questions, beginning with Commissioner Lasciuto.
Yeah, Chairman Gray, I agree with you with regards to the time. You know, looking at the pictures, I'm not really familiar with that strip of 167th, but it looked like, I don't know if there was much like street lightage or whatnot. So if you're going to be putting a blinking sign there, if it's darker there, you're putting a blinking sign, you got people's houses, could be their bedrooms or whatnot, facing out into the street. I'm talking about that one block where it's the back of the houses are facing that sign and everything. So I don't know how bright the sign is going to be. So those are things that, looking at a light nuisance for the community, where you know, to Chairperson Gray's comment about why 11 o'clock, you know, I'd like to see it actually maybe 10 to 6 a.m. if we're going to limit what time that we're going to allow the sign to be operating. But that would be my concern.
Okay. Edgar has some
Real
comments.
quickly, wanted to add, this, in terms of brightness, it actually has an automatic, it's like a dimmer on your car, like your dash on your car. So it's actually brighter during the day, and then it goes actually down in the evening hours. It's still bright, but it's not as bright as it would be at 2 in the afternoon on a sunny afternoon. 10 o'clock's, I don't think there's any issues.
I'm really familiar with the area because I live at the church. That's not an exaggeration. They own my house at the end of the parking lot. So again, not trying to change the time. I'm good with 10. That's totally cool. But just to let you know about the illumination, there's a street light right there on the corner of Gaynell and 167th. There's another one kitty corner to that because Gaynell kind of jogs as you go south across the street to 167th, and then the parking lot of the church is also illuminated. So it's not as if that area is a dark area to begin with. There's 3 light sources. We wouldn't try to, compete or exceed that, but I'm just giving you a picture of, it's not like it's a neighborhood where everyone shuts their lights off. There are some light appliances, that's not the right word, that are on all the time.
No, I mean, I just, I do, because, my father, he lives by CVS, and they put one of those signs up, and, I mean, you really catch it off of some of the windows in the house, so, it can be a nuisance, but, if you limit it how, 10 o'clock to 6 a.m., I think that would alleviate a lot of that issue, so.
Our sign would be off before my neighbors use it.
And Lori, I think you want to have some clarifications. I know somebody brought up blinking, but I know, I believe that it doesn't necessarily flash on for a half a second. It's a little bit longer.
Yes, I do want to point out that the sign code in the village does have a provision that stipulates you cannot have instantaneous or flashing. There is a minimum of a 2-second transition between the messages. And the village does also have a brightness maximum limit. So these other types of code requirements, they would have to comply as with anyone else.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is that all, Commissioner Lucido? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gaskell?
Nothing.
Commissioner Shaw?
So I believe I know the answer. I just want to confirm the residents across 167th and Laura Lane were notified of the public hearing?
Yes, that is correct.
And are there any of them here? Okay.
No, okay.
And also, the ones west across Gaynell?
Yes,
also.
Yes, that
Alright.
is correct. The code does stipulate at least 250
Yes.
feet from all edges of the property line. Staff did that as well as a few other properties just to catch anything.
That might seem
anyone that
reasonable,
might be visible.
line of sight, yes.
So we have some that are, some of them were further up on Gaynell Drive as well.
Okay. I also had the question about the timing. And not so much that I felt that 11 o'clock was too late. I just felt like I thought there might be a rationale for it. But you've answered that one. I will say that I live in the Parkside neighborhood, so I'm right there. And and my kids went to the VBS a couple of years ago. That is a very well-lit street, so I will just say that. The size of this one I went back to the staff report again, and I do see the comparison for St. George. But did the St. George one have an actual size comparison? I didn't see that listed in there.
The size was very similar to what is being proposed, but again, it was by right at that time.
Right, what I'm trying to do is, again, it was by right at the time the ordinance changed, but as has been pointed out, the context is different, right? This is a much, much larger lot than St. George, et cetera. And for that reason, I'm leaning towards, it's the same, similar size, but it's a different context, so. Just last question, I was looking at the village's GIS system, and there's the property that's directly east of it. I didn't see what it was, or, there's like
It actually belongs to the school.
the
yeah.
school, okay.
There's a strip of land.
I
connects
looked
to
it
the
up,
school.
and usually when it's owned by some sort of government entity, it doesn't show in the property records, and that's what I suspected, so. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Commissioner Manny?
I like what we proposed. I don't think, in my opinion, your site is large, so you got the sign, kind of like in the middle, so I don't think, there will be the light fall off, it'll diminish. As you get to the house, and you have foliage on, on plan on the east side, so I like it, for the outreach, you gotta get the community, to go into your church, and it'll work.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
I don't have, any qualms about, the turning it off, you know, if it's on, hey, I like it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Vargas?
I was also going to say about the time, that I thought 10 PM was more reasonable than 11 PM because it's in a residential area. But that was already addressed, and I agree with that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vargas. I just, most of what I have written down has been talked about. I just want to have just a few comments. I want to piggyback on something that Commissioner Shaw said, and I think it's salient, because staff, you did send out letters to the surrounding residents, was my understanding, to let them notify of this meeting. And that was my big thing, is were those listed addresses that you showed in the presentation tonight, if any of them were there? And I could see nobody, people out here, they shook their heads if they were in. So the fact that they were notified, you know, because I too, like Commissioner Lasciuto, I just had a concern if that one person has that blinking light at night, would that bother them? But I don't think that's gonna be an issue. And I do, again, I guess, I probably would champion for it to be at 10 PM to be shut off, just to be a good neighbor, so to speak, although I believe you guys already are good neighbors in the neighborhood there. And in terms of the sign being similar to St. George, the big difference there is, and your sarcasm was not gone unnoticed. People don't go 35 there, they go a lot faster. St. George, I walk around there all the time, and but that traffic is a very small residential street with a lot lower velocities going down it. So in terms of the repurposing, the existing sign does have, you know, nonconformities. This will have some variations. The 5-foot setback, in my mind, is reasonable. I know you want to reuse the electrical line. I think that's reasonable. You're moving it 2 feet back, and you're already got the disadvantage of kind of the slope. You know, you're 20 feet away from the curb already, from your property edge. So, and you're up on a slope. So I think it's neat, as long as it doesn't cause a visual nuisance to the residents. Yeah, I think it looked very nice, and that way you don't have to trudge through the snow in the winters to change the sign. And I think, you know, you'll get with the times with the 30-year-old sign. So those are my comments. I'm going to ask our commissioners if they have any other comments at this time. And then is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Okay. Well, thank you, Edgar. At this time, I will ask if we can get a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, and can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Could you please present the standards at this time, Lori?
Yes, thank you. I have the standards up on the screen. They address items typically for a variation. So what I'll do is I'll read the staff response to each of them, so you can understand the overall view of staff's evaluation of the proposal. So the location of the proposed freestanding sign along a heavily traveled arterial street would make it difficult for its content to be legible if limited to the size and setback requirements. There is a large setback of 20 feet between the roadway and property line, making the sign's legibility more difficult. Number 2, regarding plight and unique circumstances, there is a large 20-foot right-of-way area between the curb and the property line, setting back the sign further and reducing its visibility to fast-moving vehicle traffic on 167th Street. The sign is larger than most residential lots with direct frontage on a major arterial roadway. The site's topography and the higher vehicle speeds along 167th Street additionally limit the length of time in which a sign may be read. Number 3, regarding alteration of character of the locality. The proposed freestanding signs area will be similar in scale to the existing sign and will have surrounding brick which will complement the church's architecture. The impact of the sign will be minimized by the distance to surrounding residences, as well as the existing mature trees east and west of the property. The sign's hours will be limited with the condition that it be turned off between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. That is how staff has presented it in the report. And additionally, standard number 4, as you're familiar with, is up on the screen for your consideration. And so that concludes the standards. I have a motion up on the screen as well.
Okay, before we get to the motion, Edgar, is it reasonable to get you to agree to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. for this motion? And then whoever makes the motion, please correct that verbally. Thank you. At this time, I would, may I have a motion for this site regarding the variations?
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the following variations from the zoning ordinance to the petitioner Edgar Montalvo on behalf of Faith United Presbyterian Church at the property located 6200 West 167th Street in the R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District, consistent with the submitted plans, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the August 19th, 2021 staff report, with the conditions that the sign's illumination will be switched off the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The variation from the section 9J4 electronic message centers maximum allowable size regulations of the zoning ordinance with the electronic message center sign that is 41.38% of the total sign area instead of the maximum of 20%. The variation from the section 9.E.1 dimensional regulations for wall and freestanding signs of the zoning ordinance to permit a freestanding sign that is 38.67 square feet in size instead of the maximum of 30 square feet per size. Variation from section 9.D.2.C freestanding sign location of the zoning ordinance to encroach 5 feet into the 10-foot minimum property line setback.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Lasciuto. Lori, may I have a roll call at this time?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Lasciuto.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Mr. Montalvo, this will go to the village board on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Can I get verification from staff that that is the date? Okay. So Edgar, get with staff on if you're going to attend in person or if you need to attend via phone. Thank you for your time tonight, and
Thank you.
good luck going forward.
If you get your smoothies, swing by and check out the. Thanks so much. Have a blessed evening.
Okay, take care. We'll move on to the good of the order. We'll move on to the good of the order as it gets quieter in here. Staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
Just a positive note, the Boulevard submitted their construction drawings for phase 2.
Oh, yeah, good.
So we're eager to get our hands on that and review that. I think, just walking the site, some things we talked about with the developer, that some little internal things that, you learn when you build, that they might change over into phase 2, for instance. Some of their units, if you recall, the one bedrooms kind of had a loft area. They acknowledged that they wanted to import some windows, just to let some natural light into that room. Just little things like that they picked up on. But anyways, that's good news. They're about 80% leased on phase 1. So you probably will see a good amount of people moving in, maybe as late as October. I mean, they're signed leases, but people are coming in at different times. We're hearing positive feedback from the business community, saying that there are people visiting their stores during hours that normally didn't see people because there's people living in downtown.
Hmm.
So we're getting positive feedback, and people are curious to see our businesses in downtown, so they're walking around. We had a successful, music, event and you could see people on their patios looking and listening to the music, exactly what we wanted when we thought about this, when you guys envisioned it, that people could be, engaged, with all the events, but, at their apartments, so very happy to see this for the community, because we all know how long it took for it to happen, so very excited. Let's see, Pete's Fresh Market, they, are working on the warehouse right now, they're getting a racking system up, so they're moving along. You will see Floor and Decor soon. Burlington is nearing their final inspections to move over. And the landlord for Hobby Lobby space is gonna be redoing the entire roof. So that permit's been issued. You're gonna see that happening here in short order. And then hopefully Floor and Decor as well will get with their interior remodel.
I'm sorry, when you say roof, do you mean the actual roofing or the facade?
Just the whole flat roof is being replaced.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was a condition of Floor and Decor signing a lease. They can't have a roof less than, I think, 20 years old or something like that, and that roof was getting close to it. So that's why the village and did do an incentive agreement with them. It's a very expensive roof, but we worked on that because we knew in order to get that tenant, that was a condition. Hobby Lobby is staying committed to the community. They've signed their lease to continue on, so that's a positive. Other than that, I think those are some good highlights that we've got going on. Did I miss anything, Lori?
No?
Yeah. Village Board did their first read on the cannabis. No, nothing new came out of it, so we'll be seeing that getting approved here in September. We are getting a lot of interest because the licensing has, been pushed. There are people with licenses looking for locations. So a lot of people are watching it very closely and trying to find spots, so. Yeah. That was also first read, no comments, only one question, one trustee Galante raised. She was concerned about the height no longer being maxed, but I think you guys vetted it out pretty well, and staff said you still have a square footage limitation, and the facades, will kind of dictate that height. So I tried to reassure her that we did not think it was gonna be something drastic, that, we're gonna see crazy signs, but when we look at inline retail, we're already trying to keep them kind of cohesive, so, so that was the only question that came up.
Okay.
And then just so you guys all know, we're out of building official, so we've been posting for that. A couple weeks back, we do have a candidate that would like to extend an offer to, so more to come on that. I think it'll be a good asset to the group. And then after the building official, we're gonna be hiring for a full-time building inspector, which will help the, support of the building official, where they can do more management, and then the inspector can be out in the field. And we also are hiring for a code enforcement officer. We had a code enforcement officer that transferred over to the fire department, just for, personal reasons and hours that work more for them. And, so we have some new faces hopefully we'll be seeing shortly, but, we have some good leads on that as well. So keeping me busy.
Okay, good deal. Lori, you had something to add?
I was just going to also mention at the last village board meeting, the Allure Wellness Center and the projecting sign for local and restaurant, those were both approved. So we're working with them in the permitting process now.
Excellent. At this time, I'll move on to receiving comments from the public. Seeing that nobody is in here, we will move on to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried. Have a good night, everyone.